For centuries, our collective understanding of human history has followed a clear, linear path, a story of slow, almost inevitable progress, emerging from the deep past of primal hunter-gatherers. It paints a picture where the first flicker of organized society, the genesis of agriculture, and the rise of the earliest cities are confined to a relatively recent window, spanning perhaps the last 10 to 12,000 years. This conventional narrative, comforting in its simplicity, suggests a gradual ascent from Stone Age existence through the Neolithic Revolution, culminating in the complex civilizations we recognize from Sumer, Egypt, and the Indus Valley. It is a story told with confidence, etched into textbooks and museum displays, depicting humanity's journey as one steadily moving forward, with the great ice sheets of the last glacial maximum serving as a boundary, a blank slate preceding our true awakening. This widely accepted timeline, however, holds certain unspoken limitations. It assumes that the absence of evidence is the evidence of absence. It presumes that what we can physically excavate from the upper crust of Earth's surface represents the totality of our past. But what if this framework, so meticulously constructed, is merely a partial blueprint? What if the lens through which we view our origins is too narrow, too recent, constrained by the very forces that shaped our planet? The limitations become apparent when we consider the sheer expanse of geological time, a vast ocean where our recorded history is but a fleeting ripple. We often forget that the Earth has seen countless cycles of immense environmental change, epochs of profound transformation that could easily obscure or obliterate entire chapters of existence. Imagine if the story of human civilization as we know it is not the beginning at all. Imagine if, long before the earliest known cities, long before the advent of agriculture that supposedly launched us into a new era, another chapter unfolded. A time when organized societies, cultures with their own forms of knowledge and perhaps even rudimentary technologies already existed. This is not a tale of alien visitors or impossible magic, but a radical hypothesis that challenges the very foundation of our historical understanding, the possibility of pre-Ice Age civilizations. It's a thought that resonates with an unsettling echo, suggesting that the human journey might be far older, far more complex, and far more cyclical than we dare to admit. This concept asks us to step beyond the established boundaries, to peer through the mists of deep time, and to confront the profound implications if such societies once thrived on an Earth we scarcely recognize. The reason such a hypothesis feels radical, almost heretical, lies in the formidable veil woven by the last glacial maximum. This period, often referred to as the Ice Age, was not merely a cold snap. It was a planetary upheaval of imaginable scale, a global transformation that spanned tens of thousands of years and reached its peak around 20,000 years ago. Vast sheets of ice, miles thick, covered enormous swaths of the northern continents, carving landscapes, grinding mountains into dust, and reshaping entire geological features. The sheer weight and movement of these glaciers acted as an immense eraser, scouring the land, displacing untold tons of sediment and obliterating whatever lay in their path. Beyond the direct glacial impact, the Ice Age brought about dramatic changes in global sea levels. As vast quantities of water were locked up in ice caps, sea levels plummeted, exposing enormous land masses that are now submerged beneath the oceans. Coastlines, river valleys, and fertile plains that would have been ideal locations for early human settlement now lie hundreds of feet underwater, hidden beneath the waves. When the ice finally retreated and the Earth slowly thawed, the process reversed with equal ferocity. Meltwater torrents, far grander than any rivers we see today, carved new channels and deposited vast alluvial plains, burying old landscapes beneath layers of new sediment. The rising seas inundated the newly exposed land, reclaiming territories that had been dry for millennia. This era was a geological reset button, a profound discontinuity that severed the present from a potentially distant past. The land we inhabit today, the coastlines we recognize, are almost entirely products of the post-glacial world. Anything that existed before, any structure, any settlement, any cultural artifact would have been subjected to an almost perfect storm of destructive forces, crushed by ice, submerged by water, buried by sediment, or simply eroded beyond recognition by millennia of wind and rain. The last glacial maximum was not just a cold period, it was a planetary memory wipe, an epoch of erasure that left little behind for us to find, guiding us to believe that only primitive life could have endured such conditions. Yet the questions linger, quiet whispers that invite profound inquiry and possibility. What if the absence of clear, unequivocal evidence is precisely what we should expect, given the magnitude of these planetary transformations? What if our current understanding is limited not by the intelligence of ancient peoples, but by the destructive power of geological forces? This is not about rewriting history with fantasy, but about opening a scientific and philosophical door, allowing for a more expansive view of humanity's timeline. It asks us to consider that the very definition of civilization might be too narrowly cast, built only on the tangible remnants of stone cities and written records that have, by sheer luck, survived relatively recent millennia. Perhaps there were other forms of advancement, other ways of organizing society, other expressions of culture that did not rely on megalithic structures or enduring texts. This inquiry requires a deep, almost meditative contemplation of time itself, not as a linear progression from simple to complex, but as a vast undulating canvas where peaks and valleys of human achievement might have come and gone. It demands an intellectual humility, a willingness to admit that our historical map may be largely incomplete, filled with uncharted territories and forgotten lands. The narrative tone of this exploration, therefore, is one of profound curiosity, of respectful challenge to established ideas, and of an unwavering commitment to follow the evidence, however subtle or unconventional it may be. It is an invitation to consider the almost unsettling possibility that humanity's story is far richer, far longer, and far more mysterious than we have ever dared to imagine. And so we are invited to reconsider humanity's true origins, to shed the comfortable certainty of a linear, recent past, and entertain a bolder, more ancient beginning. If pre-Ice Age civilizations once existed, their legacy would be imprinted not on grand ruins, but in the subtle anomalies of geology, in the persistent echoes of ancient myths, and perhaps most profoundly, in the very fabric of our collective consciousness. This journey challenges us to look deeper, not just into the Earth's strata, but into the assumptions we hold about ourselves and our place in time. It asks us to confront the humbling thought that we might be heirs to a forgotten epoch, descendants of a story that spans not thousands, but perhaps hundreds of thousands of years. This reconsideration of our true origins is not a mere academic exercise. It is a profound reimagining of who we are, where we come from, and what might yet be hidden in the silent records of our planet's past. This is the profound thought we will carry forward. For if these ancient societies truly existed, then our timeline is not the beginning at all, but only the continuation of something much older, buried beneath the very ice that carved our modern world. Stay with this thought because it changes everything. The accepted narrative of human history is a story of gradual ascent, It traces our journey from the initial spark of tool-making hominids on the African plains through the vast expanse of the Paleolithic era. For millions of years, our ancestors were defined by their nomadic existence, hunter-gatherers moving with the seasons, their technology seemingly rudimentary, their social structures tied to survival. We picture small bands forging spears from stone, huddling in caves, and leaving behind only the faintest whispers of their passage. This is the era of the Old Stone Age, a time marked by adaptation, by the slow sharpening of flint, and an intelligence primarily focused on the immediate environment. Then, around 12,000 years ago, a dramatic shift occurs: the Neolithic Revolution. This is the moment, so the story goes, when humanity truly began its climb towards complexity. Agriculture emerges, taming wild grains and animals, allowing for settled communities. Villages transform into towns, pottery is invented, and the first permanent structures dot the landscape. This is the bedrock of what we understand as civilization, a progressive march from simplicity to sophistication, culminating in the first cities of Mesopotamia, the pyramids of Egypt, and the grand narratives we have learned to venerate. Our historical horizon, as it stands, is anchored in this progression, with the most advanced societies flowering only after the final retreat of the great ice sheets. It is a logical, coherent timeline, meticulously constructed by generations of archaeologists and historians. Yet, beneath this edifice of accepted history, the ground often trembles. The meticulous excavation of layers of time has not always yielded a perfectly linear narrative. There are whispers from the past, anomalies that challenge the smooth progression we expect, artifacts and observations that simply do not fit. These are the out-of-place artifacts, or UPARTs, objects whose very existence seems to defy the established chronology of human technological and cognitive development. They are pieces of a puzzle that refuse to snap into their designated slots, creating dissonance within the archaeological record. Consider the Klerksdorp spheres, found in pre-Cambrian wreck formations in South Africa, some estimated to be 2.8 billion years old. These small metallic-looking spheres, often with 3 parallel grooves running around their equator, appear almost machined. While mainstream geology classifies them as natural concretions formed by metamorphic processes, their uncanny regularity and internal fibrous structure, described by some as indistinguishable from artificial manufacture, stir profound questions. If they are natural, they are an astonishing coincidence of form. If they are not, their age pushes the boundaries of toolmaking to an almost unfathomable antiquity, long before even the first eukaryotic cells, let alone any complex life we know. Or the so-called COSO artifact, a spark plug encased in a geode found in California in 1961, dated by its rock matrix to 500,000 years old. While its authenticity as an ancient artifact is fiercely debated, with critics arguing it was merely a modern object rapidly cemented by mineral deposits, the initial shock it caused was immense. It raised the unsettling notion that a technology indistinguishable from our own could have existed in a forgotten epoch. These objects, whether genuine anomalies or misinterpreted geological curiosities, serve a vital purpose. They force us to confront the limitations of our dating methods and the rigidity of our historical assumptions. They act as persistent thorns in the side of a comfortable consensus, demanding a more profound inquiry into what we think we know about the past. But the challenge to the conventional timeline extends beyond mere physical objects. It delves into the very fabric of early human cognition, the analysis of complex symbolic thought and organization. For decades, our understanding of Paleolithic humans painted a picture of pragmatic, survival-driven beings. Their art, their rituals, their social structures were often interpreted through a lens of nascent development, a slow awakening of consciousness.
Yet, as new discoveries emerge, this interpretation becomes harder to sustain. The cave paintings of Lascaux or Chauvet, for example, demonstrate an artistic sophistication and anatomical precision that astonishes us even today. They are not crude sketches, but masterpieces of perspective, movement, and composition, executed with a knowledge of pigments and techniques that speaks to a highly developed cultural and aesthetic sense. These works, often dated to 30,000 to 40,000 years ago, are not merely decorations, but expressions of complex symbolism, perhaps even narratives, suggesting a depth of thought previously attributed to much later societies. Beyond art, early burial practices hint at profound philosophical or spiritual frameworks. The careful placement of bodies, often accompanied by grave goods, red ochre, or symbolic offerings, suggests a belief in an afterlife or a deep reverence for the deceased. These are not just simple disposals of the dead, but elaborate rituals requiring planning, communal effort, and a shared understanding of meaning. Sites like Sungir in Russia, with its elaborate burials of individuals adorned with thousands of ivory beads and intricate carvings, dated to around 24,000 years ago, reveal a level of social organization, craftsmanship, and symbolic investment that pushes against the primitive hunter-gatherer stereotype. These findings imply a richness of inner life and communal structure that may have been far more developed than our current models allow, suggesting a capacity for abstract thought and complex belief systems that emerged long before the agricultural revolution. This brings us to a more fundamental question. How do we actually interpret the past? The strength of traditional archaeology rests on its dating methods and its systematic interpretation of cultural layers. Techniques like radiocarbon dating, stratigraphy, and dendrochronology provide what appear to be precise chronological markers, creating a reassuring framework for our history. Yet even these venerated methods are not without their limitations and potential biases. Radiocarbon dating, while revolutionary, is effective only up to a certain age limit, roughly 50,000 to 60,000 years. Beyond that, the carbon-14 isotope has decayed too much to be reliably measured. This means that for anything significantly older, archaeologists must rely on less direct methods, such as potassium-argon dating for volcanic rock or the geological context of a site. These methods provide broader ranges and can sometimes be influenced by geological processes that are not fully understood or accurately accounted for. Moreover, the interpretation of a site's age is often intertwined with the dating of associated organic matter, which can be subject to contamination or displacement over vast stretches of time. A bone fragment found near a tool might not be contemporaneous with it, or a sample could be affected by later groundwater activity. Furthermore, traditional archaeological interpretations often operate within established paradigms. When an anomaly is discovered, the first instinct is often to try and fit it into the existing framework, or to dismiss it as an error or a natural phenomenon. This is not necessarily malicious, but a natural human tendency to preserve cognitive consistency. The principle of the least astonishment often guides interpretations, preferring explanations that require the fewest disruptions to established theory. For example, a uniquely sophisticated tool found in an unexpectedly old stratum might be reclassified as a natural rock formation, or its context re-evaluated to reduce its apparent antiquity. This self-reinforcing loop can make it challenging for truly paradigm-shifting evidence to gain acceptance, as it requires a fundamental re-evaluation of deeply held beliefs. This systematic approach, while rigorous, can inadvertently lead to the suppression or misinterpretation of data that simply does not fit. What if a sophisticated object existed millions of years ago, but was carved from stone that offers no organic material for carbon dating? How would we date it, and more importantly, how would we classify it if it defies all known evolutionary timelines for toolmaking? The methods are excellent for establishing the chronology of known human development, but they become recalcitrant when confronted with evidence that hints at an entirely different, much older story. This gap between the capabilities of our dating techniques and the true antiquity of the Earth often leaves vast periods as effectively unknowable, open to speculation, but difficult to prove or disprove definitively.
And this is where the tension between established dogma and emerging evidence becomes most palpable. The orthodox view of human history is a powerful and coherent narrative, backed by decades of meticulous research and countless peer-reviewed publications. It provides a solid foundation for our understanding of who we are and where we come from. Yet the persistent whispers of uparts, the unexpected sophistication of early symbolic thought, and the inherent limitations of our dating and interpretive frameworks create undeniable friction. When a 200,000-year-old hammer is purportedly found in Texas coal, or when microscrews are said to be embedded in millions of years old rock in Russia, the scientific community faces a choice: integrate this data or explain it away. Most often the latter occurs, with rigorous arguments presented for geological formation, mistaken identity, or outright hoax. This skepticism is healthy. It is the cornerstone of scientific inquiry. Extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence. However, a pattern of consistently explaining away anomalies, rather than seeing them as potential indicators of a larger, unacknowledged history, can become its own form of dogma. It can blind us to possibilities that lie just beyond our current intellectual horizon. The very act of classifying something as out of place implies that a place already exists for everything, that our timeline is complete. But what if the anomalies are not simply misfits, but fragments of a genuinely lost past, remnants of civilizations that existed before the ice, before the generally accepted rise of agriculture, before our current historical record began? The resistance to such ideas is understandable. It would necessitate a complete overhaul of archaeological textbooks, a radical reevaluation of human capabilities and timelines, and perhaps even a reconsideration of our unique place in planetary history. Yet the continued emergence of baffling artifacts and the deepening appreciation for the complexity of ancient human thought keeps the questions alive. These challenges are not meant to undermine the monumental achievements of archaeology, but rather to push its boundaries, inviting a more expansive view of humanity's long and mysterious journey. They suggest that the silent record of Earth may hold secrets that our current methods are not yet equipped to hear, awaiting a new ear, a new perspective to finally bring them into the light. The anomalies in the archaeological record, the faint whispers of a past our conventional timeline struggles to embrace, demand an explanation. They hint at a lost epoch, a forgotten chapter obscured by something immense. What force could so thoroughly erase entire ages, leaving only scattered fragments and perplexing questions? The answer lies not in a gradual process, but in a sudden, brutal punctuation mark in Earth's deep history, a period of intense global upheaval known as the Younger Dryas. Imagine a world emerging from the grip of a vast ice age. For thousands of years, glaciers had retreated, slowly releasing their hold, and the planet was steadily warming. Life was returning, seas were rising, and human groups, having endured the long cold, were beginning to thrive in newly exposed landscapes. Then, with terrifying abruptness, everything changed. Between approximately 12,900 and 11,700 years ago, a mere blink in geological time, the Earth plunged back into a deep freeze. This was the Younger Dryas, a sudden, brutal return to glacial conditions, a climatic shockwave that reshaped continents and erased countless records. This was not a gentle cooling. Evidence from ice cores, ocean sediments, and ancient pollen records paints a picture of a catastrophic reversal. temperatures in the northern hemisphere plummeted by as much as 10 to 15 degrees Celsius in a matter of decades, ushering in a brutal winter that lasted for over 1,000 years. The vast Laurentide ice sheet, which covered much of North America, began to expand again. Glaciers surged forward, and the delicate balance of the planet's climate system was utterly shattered. The leading scientific explanation for this sudden and dramatic shift centers on the massive influx of fresh water from melting ice sheets, specifically the colossal Agassiz and Ojibwe lakes in North America, which at some point breached their ice dams and drained into the North Atlantic. This sudden gush of cold fresh water disrupted the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, or AMOC, a critical ocean current that acts like a global conveyor belt, distributing heat from the tropics to the poles. When the AMOC slowed or even temporarily shut down, the northern hemisphere was deprived of its oceanic heating mechanism, leading to rapid cooling. This global climate shift caused immense changes, not only in temperature but also in sea levels. As colossal ice sheets melted and refroze, the sheer volume of water entering the oceans caused sea levels to fluctuate wildly and rapidly. Imagine coastlines receding and advancing not over millennia but over generations, submerging vast tracts of land that were once fertile plains or shallow coastlines. During the deglaciation period leading up to the Younger Dryas, global sea levels had already risen significantly, exposing vast continental shelves that could have supported diverse ecosystems and, critically, human settlements. These were prime locations for any pre-Ice Age civilizations, offering access to marine resources and fertile river deltas. But with the Younger Dryas, those newly exposed and populated coastal zones faced a relentless, rapid, and destructive sea level rise. Any settlements, infrastructure, or cultural markers situated along those now submerged continental shelves would have been utterly engulfed, swept away, or deeply buried by the relentless march of the rising tides. The memory of these flooded landscapes persists in ancient flood myths across the globe, but the physical evidence for pre-Younger Dryas coastal civilizations lies hidden under hundreds of feet of water, making it nearly impossible to access with current archaeological methods. The very notion of archaeological preservation is challenged when the landscape itself is dramatically transformed, buried under vast new oceans, or scoured by their powerful currents. Yet some researchers propose an even more cataclysmic trigger for the Younger Dryas, the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. This bold and still controversial theory suggests that the Earth was struck by fragments of a disintegrating comet or asteroid around 12,900 years ago. Such an event would have unleashed unimaginable energy, dwarfing any known terrestrial catastrophe in human history. The evidence for this hypothesis is accumulating, despite initial skepticism. Across North America and extending into parts of Europe and the Middle East, a distinct geological layer has been identified, precisely dated to the onset of the Younger Dryas. This layer, often referred to as the Younger Dryas boundary layer, contains a remarkable suite of extraterrestrial markers. Scientists have discovered micro-nanodiamonds formed under immense pressures and temperatures indicative of an extraterrestrial impact. Alongside these are magnetic microspherules, tiny molten rock and metal droplets that would have rained down globally after an impact. We also find elevated levels of iridium, a platinum group metal, rare on Earth's surface but common in asteroids and comets. Platinum spikes, fullerenes with trapped extraterrestrial helium, and various forms of high-temperature carbon such as charcoal and soot all point to a singular, devastating event. These materials are not scattered randomly, but concentrated within that narrow, time-stamped geological layer, a definitive fingerprint of a cosmic collision.
The impact hypothesis paints a terrifying picture of the immediate aftermath. The initial atmospheric shock wave would have been immense,
followed by a firestorm of global proportions. Imagine fragments of a comet raining down across multiple continents, igniting vast stretches of forests and grasslands. The widespread layers of charcoal found at the Younger Dryas boundary layer, sometimes several centimeters thick, suggest a period of intense, widespread conflagration. This was not just a regional wildfire, it was potentially a continental, even global burning event, choking the skies with ash and soot, further contributing to the rapid cooling and the abrupt end of megafauna populations across North America. Beyond the fires, the direct geological mechanisms of destruction from such an impact would have been devastating. If comet fragments struck the oceans, they would have generated mega tsunamis, monstrous waves unlike anything seen in recorded history. These tsunami walls, hundreds or even thousands of feet high, would have swept inland for vast distances, obliterating coastal settlements and any civilizations that thrived along the fertile lowlands. Imagine cities not merely flooded, but utterly scoured from the landscape, their foundations ripped apart, their structures pulverized, and their very existence erased by the immense hydraulic force. Even if a society possessed advanced building techniques, no structure could withstand the sheer power of such a watery cataclysm, capable of rearranging entire geological features. On land, direct impacts would have created localized but catastrophic destruction zones. Even if a society built structures robust enough to withstand earthquakes, they would stand no chance against the direct kinetic energy of cosmic projectiles. The ground beneath their feet would have become a fluid, boiling mass, vaporizing anything on or near the surface. The resulting craters, if in soft sediment, might have been subsequently covered by floodwaters or later sedimentation, hiding the direct impact scars. Furthermore, the sheer volume of ejecta, molten rock and debris thrown into the atmosphere, could have rained down as superheated projectiles, setting fires and causing widespread destruction over vast areas. This raining debris could form glass-like structures from melted rock, leaving behind geological anomalies that defy easy explanation, often attributed to conventional volcanic activity or meteor strikes, but potentially evidence of a more widespread, devastating impact event. While less directly linked to the Younger Dryas impact, the general instability of the planet during such cataclysms could have also triggered other destructive forces. Major tectonic shifts could have been exacerbated, leading to increased volcanic activity or widespread seismic events. Though the Younger Dryas is primarily defined by its cold period and potential impact, it is not unreasonable to consider a broader cascade of environmental collapse. Widespread volcanic eruptions, if they occurred, would have injected more aerosols and greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, further destabilizing the climate and contributing to a cycle of destruction. The geological record is complex, and the interconnectedness of Earth's systems means one catastrophic event can ripple through many others. The combined effect of these cataclysms, the sudden return to glacial conditions, the massive and rapid sea level rise, the potential cometary impact, global firestorms, and devastating tsunamis represents a truly great erasure. Any civilization, no matter how advanced, delicate, or resilient, would have been challenged to its absolute limits by such a swift and brutal planetary assault. Such a sudden ecological collapse would not only destroy physical infrastructure, but also collapse the underlying resource base that supports complex societies. Consider the practical implications for physical traces of advanced societies. Stone structures, even megalithic ones, would not necessarily survive a mega tsunami that could rip apart bedrock. Settlements built of wood, earth, or even early brick would be utterly pulverized and scattered. The archaeological record we typically rely on, stratified layers of human activity. Tools, pottery, and structural remains would have been violently disturbed, mixed, or entirely washed away. Imagine trying to find the remnants of a city after it has been buried under hundreds of feet of sediment, then submerged under an ocean, and then subjected to thousands of years of deep sea currents, all while undergoing the grinding action of subsequent glaciation and erosion. The likelihood of preserving recognizable structures becomes incredibly slim. Furthermore, the survivors, if any, would have been thrown back into a brutal struggle for existence. Famine, extreme cold, and a radically altered landscape would have decimated populations, severing cultural continuity. The knowledge and technology of a pre-cataclysmic civilization would have been lost, leaving only a few hardy groups to begin anew, slowly rediscovering agriculture and rudimentary tool-making in a fundamentally changed world. The memory of such an event, even if preserved in oral traditions, would degrade over millennia, becoming mythologized and difficult to reconcile with a direct historical account. This is the mechanism by which entire epochs can be utterly forgotten. This period, the Younger Dryas, acts as a profound filter, a chronological barrier that explains the apparent missing link in human development. If advanced societies existed prior to 12,900 years ago, this epoch provides a mechanism for their near-total obliteration. It explains why we find tantalizing anomalies that hint at sophisticated knowledge or craftsmanship, yet lack the consistent, widespread evidence of established civilizations. The very Earth was violently reset, burying old worlds under ice, ocean, and layers of fire-scarred sediment. The conventional archaeological narrative assumes a linear progression, a slow and steady climb from primitive to complex. But the Younger Dryas offers a radical alternative, a past punctuated by profound discontinuity. It suggests that our history might not be a continuous ascent, but a cyclical journey, with periods of advanced civilization potentially rising and falling, only to be erased by forces that defy our current imagination. The world we inhabit today might in fact be a post-cataclysmic recovery, built upon the silent graves of worlds long forgotten. The scale of this erasure is staggering, presenting a challenge to conventional thought that is as immense as the forces that caused it. What little we find of a sophisticated past before this period, therefore, becomes all the more remarkable, tiny clues hinting at what the Younger Dryas ultimately swallowed. And it is in these whispers, these fragmented memories of a lost world, that we continue our search for the true story of human origins. The physical world, as we have explored, can be reshaped and utterly erased by monumental forces. Cataclysms can sweep away cities, and ice can bury entire landscapes, leaving little behind but a silent record in the geology of the planet. Yet humanity remembers. Long after the structures crumble and the land itself changes beyond recognition, stories persist. These are the whispers from antiquity, the myths and legends that resonate across time and cultures, perhaps carrying truths far older than we imagine. For millennia, cultures across the globe have told tales of a great deluge, a world-ending flood that submerged the lands and cleansed the earth from an earlier, often wicked humanity. These are not isolated stories. From the ancient texts of Mesopotamia to the oral traditions of indigenous peoples, the narrative echoes with striking consistency.
In the Near East, the Epic of Gilgamesh speaks of Utnapishtim, chosen by the gods to build an ark and save the seeds of all life from a catastrophic flood. The Hebrew Bible recounts Noah and his ark, a story familiar to billions, describing 40 days and 40 nights of rain that covered the highest mountains. Across the globe, similar accounts unfold. The Hindu Vedas tell of Manu, warned by the fish god Vishnu to build a boat and preserve all species during a cosmic flood. In Greek mythology, Deucalion and Pyrrha survive a deluge sent by Zeus, repopulating the earth with stones. The indigenous peoples of the Americas, from the Maya and Aztec to the Hopi and Inuit, possess their own versions of a global flood, often involving powerful deities, chosen survivors, and the complete destruction and rebirth of the world. These narratives, separated by vast oceans and entirely distinct cultural evolutions, share astonishing commonalities. They speak of a period of immense global chaos, of the loss of nearly all life, and of a single family or small group who were divinely guided to ensure humanity's continuation. Could these be mere coincidences, a universal archetype born of the human psyche? Or are they, instead, a collective memory, a fragmented, metaphorical recollection of the cataclysmic events that marked the end of a previous epoch, the very same great erasure we have already begun to trace? The persistence of these narratives suggests a deeper meaning, a truth etched into the collective unconscious of our species. They do not merely describe a local river overflowing, but a global event, a wiping clean of the slate, after which humanity began anew. And if the Younger Dryas period, with its rapid sea level rise and climatic upheaval, truly reshaped the Earth, then these ancient flood myths gain a haunting resonance. They become more than just fables. They become possible eyewitness accounts, filtered through generations of oral tradition, speaking to us from a time when the world was irrevocably altered. This leads us directly into another class of ancient tales, ones that speak not just of great floods, but of entire land masses swallowed by the seas. Legends of lost continents and sunken cities exist in nearly every corner of the world, describing technologically advanced or spiritually evolved societies that vanished beneath the waves. The most famous of these, of course, is Atlantis, as described by Plato. He detailed a powerful island empire, a vibrant civilization boasting sophisticated architecture, advanced engineering, and a grand canal system, which was ultimately destroyed by an earthquake and tsunami, sinking beneath the Atlantic in a single day and night. Plato explicitly placed this event some 9,000 years before his own time, which aligns suspiciously with the very period of intense global change we have been examining. But Atlantis is not an isolated story. Across the Pacific, tales of the lost continent of Lemuria or Mu describe a highly spiritual civilization that once stretched across vast swaths of the ocean, only to be submerged in a cataclysm. Polynesian and Aboriginal Australian traditions carry echoes of land bridges and islands that sank beneath the waves, shaping their cosmologies and migration patterns. In Celtic mythology, the city of Ys, an advanced settlement built below sea level, was said to have been consumed by the ocean due to human failing. These are not simply imaginative fantasies. The recurring motif of a sophisticated civilization that ends its days beneath the ocean's surface hints at something more. They evoke a reality where vast coastal plains and continental shelves, once dry land during the Ice Age, were indeed inundated by rapidly rising sea levels. The memory of these lost lands, distorted by time and oral transmission, might well have survived as these legends, transforming geological fact into mythic drama. The specifics may be allegorical, the details embellished, but the core truth that powerful societies once existed on lands now submerged remains a compelling possibility, a testament to a world far different from our own. And if ancient land masses and entire civilizations were indeed lost, then who were the people who populated them? This brings us to a pervasive and intriguing set of stories, the legends of culture heroes and sky gods who appeared among nascent human societies, imparting advanced knowledge and technology. Across countless cultures, myths speak of benevolent beings arriving from afar, often from the sky or from the sea, bringing with them the gifts of civilization. The Mesoamerican deity Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, is described as having taught humanity agriculture, writing, astronomy, and the arts. His departure and the promise of his return is a central theme in Aztec and Mayan prophecy. In ancient Egypt, the god Thoth, often associated with the Greek Hermes, was credited with the invention of writing, mathematics, and science. His teachings formed the bedrock of their sophisticated civilization. From Sumerian lore, the enigmatic Oannes, a fish-like being, was said to emerge from the Persian Gulf each day to instruct early Mesopotamian peoples in all matters of art, science, and law before retreating back into the waters each night. In the Andes, Viracocha, the creator god, was depicted as a white-skinned, bearded figure who arrived after a great flood, bringing order to the world, shaping the landscape and teaching agricultural techniques and social structures. These figures are consistently described as possessing knowledge far beyond the capabilities of the early hunter-gatherer or even early agricultural societies they encountered. They are not merely powerful gods, but instructors, civilizers, architects of human progress. Could these culture heroes and sky gods be the mythical echoes of survivors from a previous advanced civilization, individuals who emerged from the cataclysm to help reconstruct a shattered world, their superior knowledge perceived as divine intervention by those who had regressed? The idea suggests a transfer of knowledge, a reseeding of culture, rather than a spontaneous emergence. The question then arises, are these descriptions merely imaginative personifications of abstract concepts, or do they hold a kernel of historical truth, a memory of mentors from a previous epoch, now deified by later generations? Their stories suggest a period when profound knowledge was delivered rather than slowly accumulated, hinting at a forgotten legacy that precedes our own. This leads us to consider not just individual myths, but the broader analysis of shared symbolic patterns and narratives across diverse ancient cultures that seemingly had no contact. Beyond the widespread flood stories and tales of culture heroes, an even deeper mystery emerges: the recurrence of specific, complex motifs that appear universally, yet defy simple explanation through independent invention. These are not general similarities, but intricate patterns that suggest a common, ancient source.
Consider the recurring imagery of a world tree or axis mundi that connects the cosmos, appearing in Norse, Mayan, Siberian, and Indian mythologies. Or the complex astronomical knowledge encoded in structures and oral traditions often attributed to ancient peoples who, according to conventional timelines, should not have possessed such precise understanding of celestial mechanics. We find parallel narratives of creation, of primordial eggs or cosmic serpents appearing in cultures geographically separated by thousands of miles. Even certain geometric patterns, mathematical concepts, or ritualistic practices show bewildering commonalities across ancient civilizations, from the intricacies of sacred geometry to the construction of megalithic structures aligned to solstices and equinoxes, built by peoples who allegedly had no shared blueprint. Traditional archaeology often attributes these similarities to parallel evolution, suggesting that human minds naturally converge on similar solutions or narratives. But the sheer specificity and complexity of some of these shared patterns makes that explanation increasingly strained. Could these not be independent inventions, but rather fragments of a collective memory, a shared inheritance from a common global ancestor? If a pre-Ice Age civilization once existed, spreading its knowledge and cultural understanding across the nascent human populations, then these symbols and narratives could be the lingering imprints of that lost epoch. They would be the echoes of a shared foundation, a deep cultural memory passed down through generations long after the physical structures of their origin had dissolved into dust and myth. It suggests a global dissemination of ideas at a time when we believe humanity was still largely isolated and primitive. This persistence of memory, even in the face of cataclysmic change, speaks to the power of oral tradition, a carrier of deep time memories that often outlives stone and metal. We tend to dismiss myths as fantasy, products of simple minds trying to explain complex phenomena. Yet oral traditions, passed down with meticulous care, have proven capable of preserving astonishingly accurate information over vast stretches of time.
Australian Aboriginal Dreamtime stories, for example, accurately describe landscapes and sea levels from tens of thousands of years ago, matching geological evidence that has only recently been uncovered. The precise details of flora, fauna, and geographical features in these tales speak of a profound observational knowledge passed down through an unbroken lineage. The challenge with oral tradition is, of course, its susceptibility to embellishment, metaphor, and distortion over millennia. Details can be lost, merged, or transformed into symbolic narratives. A real event, witnessed by survivors, might become a divine intervention over countless tellings. A sophisticated civilization might become gods who descended from the heavens. Yet the core memory of a catastrophic flood, of advanced knowledge brought by enigmatic figures, or of vanished lands, persists. It is reinforced by the sheer emotional impact of such events, making them indelible in the human psyche. These are not merely whimsical tales. They are a different kind of historical record, one written not in stone or parchment, but in the minds and mouths of generations. They represent the last faint whispers from a forgotten age, a collective memory that refuses to be silenced entirely. And listening to these whispers, taking them seriously as potential carriers of ancient truth, forces us to reevaluate what we think we know about the origins of civilization itself. For if these myths are indeed memories, then humanity's story began not with a slow, gradual rise from primitive hunter-gatherers, but with a legacy inherited from a sophisticated world lost to the ice, the water, and the profound forgetting of time. The myths and legends, the shared narratives of a world submerged and reborn, offer a captivating glimpse into a forgotten past. Yet for many, stories alone are not enough. We seek not just whispers from antiquity, but the solid, undeniable imprints of a lost time. And so we turn our gaze from the intangible realm of memory to the enduring testament of stone, to structures that stand defiantly against the conventional narrative, challenging everything we thought we knew about early human capability. Our journey begins in southeastern Turkey, amidst rolling hills where a discovery of unparalleled significance lies buried: Göbekli Tepe. Unearthed in the mid-1990s, this site rewrote the very first chapter of human civilization, pushing back the timeline of monumental architecture by thousands of years. Before Göbekli Tepe, it was universally believed that humans only began constructing large-scale, complex structures after the advent of agriculture, when settled communities could support the labor required. The logic was simple. Farming led to surplus, surplus led to sedentism, and sedentism led to specialization and ultimately civilization. But Göbekli Tepe shatters this neat progression. Dating back to at least 9600 BC and possibly even earlier, its oldest layers predate the earliest evidence of settled agriculture by over 1,000 years. Here, massive T-shaped pillars, some weighing up to 20 tons and standing 18 feet tall, are intricately carved with images of animals: scorpions, snakes, boars, birds of prey. These monolithic stones are arranged in sophisticated circular enclosures, suggesting a highly organized society capable of complex engineering, intricate artistry, and perhaps a profound spiritual or ceremonial purpose. Who were the people who built Göbekli Tepe? Mainstream archaeology suggests they were hunter-gatherers, but the sheer scale of the construction implies a level of communal organization and resource management far beyond what was previously attributed to pre-agricultural societies. How did they quarry, transport, and erect such colossal stones without advanced tools or a permanent settlement structure? The very existence of Göbekli Tepe demands that we reconsider the fundamental drivers of human development. It suggests that monumental architecture, religious expression, and sophisticated social structures may have preceded agriculture, perhaps even serving as a catalyst for it. The site was deliberately buried, possibly for millennia, raising another layer of mystery. Was it preserved, or was it hidden from an unknown event, a testament to a time when humanity possessed a forgotten knowledge of engineering and collective endeavor? Its age places it squarely within the period immediately following the Younger Dryas, a testament to resilience or perhaps a direct continuation of skills from a deeper past. Across continents, high in the Bolivian Andes, another site presents an equally perplexing challenge to established timelines. Pumapunku, part of the larger Tiwanaku complex. Here, immense blocks of stone, some weighing over 100 tons, are carved with a precision that defies explanation using known ancient technologies. The most striking features are the H blocks, perfectly uniform, with intricate cuts, grooves, and drill holes that seem to have been made with diamond-tipped tools or something even more advanced. These stones interlock with such exactitude without the use of mortar that a razor blade cannot be slipped between them. The surfaces are often polished to a mirror-like sheen, and the angles are so precise that they suggest the use of jigs, templates, or even some form of machine-like tooling.
The conventional dating for Pumapunku places its construction around 500–600 AD, during the height of the Tiwanaku culture. Yet the level of sophistication displayed in the stonework seems far beyond what this culture is credited with possessing. How did they achieve such exact cuts, such perfectly flat surfaces, such intricate internal angles in extremely hard andesite and diorite stone without iron tools? The tools available to the Tiwanaku, according to archaeological consensus, were limited to bronze, stone, and bone. Such instruments simply cannot replicate the precision seen at Pumapunku. It hints at a mastery of engineering and quarrying that predates known historical records, a profound understanding of geometry and material properties that seems anomalous for its accepted age. Furthermore, the ruins themselves show signs of catastrophic destruction, as if the entire complex was ripped apart by an immense force. Massive blocks are scattered, twisted, and thrown across the landscape, not merely fallen, but violently displaced. Could this be the signature of a cataclysmic event, a memory of which endures in the local flood myths that tell of a great deluge? If the Tiwanaku culture merely reoccupied an older site, integrating it into their own traditions, then the true age of Pumapunku's most enigmatic structures could stretch back far into the deep past, perhaps to a time when different technologies and knowledge were commonplace. It forces us to ask, were the Tiwanaku the builders, or were they merely the inheritors of an older, grander legacy, attempting to understand and utilize remnants of a previous age? The implications of such precision extend beyond mere craftsmanship. The layout of the Tiwanaku complex, including Pumapunku, is also believed by some researchers to reflect advanced astronomical knowledge. Specific alignments appear to correspond to solstices, equinoxes, and perhaps even more complex celestial observations. Such an understanding of the cosmos, embedded in the very architecture, suggests a scientific acuity that challenges the traditional understanding of ancient Andean peoples. It points to a civilization with a deep connection to the stars and a capacity for complex observational science, the kind of knowledge that might have been passed down through generations, or perhaps carried forward from an earlier, more advanced epoch. If land-based structures like Göbekli Tepe and Pumapunku present such profound enigmas, what might lie hidden beneath the waves, shielded from human gaze for millennia? The shifting coastlines of our planet, dramatically altered by ancient sea level rises, hint at an underwater archaeology far richer and older than currently acknowledged. The rapid melting of glacial ice following the Younger Dryas led to a global sea level rise of hundreds of feet, submerging vast swaths of coastal land that would have been habitable, even desirable in earlier periods. One such hypothesized site is the Bimini Road, off the coast of North Bimini in the Bahamas. Here, perfectly aligned rectangular limestone blocks, some weighing several tons, form a distinct underwater road or wall approximately half a mile long. Discovered in 1968, its geometric regularity immediately sparked debate. Is it a natural formation or an artificial structure? Geologists often argue that such regular patterns can be created by natural seismic activity fracturing bedrock or by lithification of beach rock. Yet the distinct linear arrangement, the apparent right angles, and the sheer scale of the uniform blocks strike many as too precise to be purely coincidental. If it is indeed man-made, its submergence suggests a date reaching back to a time when sea levels were significantly lower, placing its construction well before any conventionally accepted timeline for complex coastal architecture in the region. Even more compelling is the Yonaguni Monument, off the coast of Yonaguni Island in Japan. Discovered in 1986, this massive underwater rock formation features clear steps, terracing, right angles, flat platforms, and seemingly carved geometric patterns. It stretches over a considerable area, resembling a submerged pyramid or a series of interconnected ceremonial platforms. The largest structure is a monumental sandstone formation approximately 50 meters long and 20 meters wide, with sharp edges and clear risers. Like Bimini, mainstream geologists largely attribute Yonaguni to natural processes, fault lines, erosion, and tectonic activities shaping the sandstone. They suggest that the human eye is simply predisposed to see patterns and structures where none exist, a phenomenon reminiscent of the face on Mars debate. However, proponents of its artificial origin point to compelling details: straight walls, perfectly perpendicular corners, stepped formations that appear too regular for natural erosion, and even what some interpret as carved pathways and distinct intentional features. If Yonaguni is indeed a man-made structure, its submergence would place its construction at least 10,000 years ago, when sea levels were significantly lower. This would mean it was built by a sophisticated culture during a period conventionally associated with hunter-gatherers, once again pushing back the known timeline for advanced engineering and societal complexity. The precision of its inferred construction, particularly the sheer effort required to shape and align such massive stone features underwater or on a coastline that has since sunk, speaks to a level of technological and organizational prowess that remains largely unacknowledged. These underwater enigmas, whether Bimini Road, Yonaguni, or other reported submerged structures globally, share a common thread. They challenge the prevailing archaeological narrative by suggesting that complex societies existed in coastal regions before the last major glacial melt. Their very existence, if confirmed as artificial, would imply a forgotten understanding of engineering, an ability to work with massive stones, and a societal organization capable of monumental construction at a time when humans were supposedly still largely nomadic or just beginning to experiment with rudimentary agriculture. What these sites collectively imply is a deeper understanding of engineering principles, perhaps even a knowledge of hydrodynamics, that allowed for the movement of colossal stones. They suggest an astronomical awareness woven into the very fabric of their constructions, pointing to a civilization that observed the cosmos with an acuity we usually attribute to much later periods. Furthermore, the selection and manipulation of stone at places like Pumapunku speak to a profound geological understanding, not just how to quarry stone, but how to select the right types for durability and workability, and how to shape them with an almost impossible precision. These sites present formidable challenges to the conventional timelines of technological development. If Göbekli Tepe was built by hunter-gatherers, then our definition of hunter-gatherer must expand dramatically to include complex social structures, monumental architecture, and sophisticated symbolic thought. If Pumapunku's precision predates the Tiwanaku by millennia, then the tools and techniques required for such stonework existed in a forgotten age. If Bimini and Yonaguni are indeed submerged ruins, then coastal civilizations with advanced engineering skills existed before the end of the last major glacial melt, thriving in lands now lost to the sea.
The scientific and archaeological communities, for their part, approach these sites with understandable caution. They demand irrefutable proof, direct evidence of human intervention that cannot be explained by natural processes. And that proof, in many cases, remains elusive, obscured by the vast stretches of time, the erosive forces of nature, and the sheer difficulty of conducting thorough investigations in remote or underwater environments. The burden of proof is high, and rightly so, for overturning deeply entrenched historical paradigms requires more than compelling patterns or intriguing anomalies. Yet, The persistent questions raised by these enigmatic structures continue to echo through the silence of history. They remind us that the human story, as we currently understand it, may be incomplete, missing crucial chapters that detail remarkable achievements from a time before the Great Flood, before the ice receded, before the conventional dawn of civilization. They invite us to step beyond the established boundaries, to consider that the echoes in stone are not mere geological accidents, but tangible remnants of a world that once was, a world that possessed knowledge and capabilities we are only now beginning to fathom. And this deepens the mystery, moving us towards the profound task of redefining our place in time. The ancient stones of Göbekli Tepe, the precise megaliths of Pumapunku, and the shadowed depths of submerged ruins like Yonaguni all stand as silent challenges to our accepted timelines. They are not isolated curiosities, but pieces of a larger, more intricate mosaic. Building on the persistent whispers of flood myths and the startling implications of out-of-place artifacts, a different narrative begins to emerge. This is not a collection of disparate anomalies, but a tapestry woven from threads of evidence hinting at a lost epoch of human ingenuity and culture that predates the great ice sheets and the conventional dawn of our known history. Taken together, these observations suggest a continuum of civilization far deeper than currently acknowledged. They point to a period when humanity or a predecessor navigated complex challenges with an understanding of engineering, astronomy, and perhaps even geology that transcends what we attribute to the post-Ice Age world. The sheer scale and precision of these ancient works, their alignment with celestial events, and their apparent ability to withstand cataclysmic forces compel us to ask what kind of civilization could have achieved such feats. Perhaps the advancement of these pre-Ice Age societies was not defined by industrial might or technological complexity in the way we understand it today. We tend to measure progress by the accelerating pace of innovation, the mastery of external energy, and the proliferation of intricate machinery. But their advancement might have followed a profoundly different trajectory. Imagine societies deeply attuned to the rhythms of the earth, their knowledge expressed not in factories and cities of steel, but in a spiritual connection to the land, an ecological wisdom that ensured harmony with their environment. Their mastery might have been in the subtle manipulation of natural forces, a profound understanding of resonance, sound, or the properties of water and stone that allowed them to shape their world with a grace and efficiency we can barely comprehend. Their science could have been integrated with their spirituality, their technology indistinguishable from their art. What if their engineering involved not brute force, but an esoteric knowledge of planetary energies, ley lines, or forgotten principles of acoustics that could move colossal stones with minimal effort? Such a civilization would leave a very different kind of archaeological signature than our own. It might emphasize enduring structures built for eternity, designed to align with cosmic cycles, rather than ephemeral creations designed for rapid obsolescence. Their legacy might be found in subtle energetic imprints, patterns in the landscape, or profound shifts in consciousness, rather than mountains of discarded plastic. Their libraries might not have been scrolls or books, but perhaps collective memories, passed down through generations in a language of symbol and story, which later evolved into the very myths we now dismiss as fables. The profound implications of this possibility are immense, for it challenges the very foundation of our linear view of human history. We habitually conceive of civilization as a singular, unbroken ascent from primitive beginnings to our current apex. Yet the evidence we have explored hints at a cyclical nature, a grander pattern of emergence, fluorescence, and decline, perhaps repeating over vast spans of geological time. The rise and fall of societies, the ebb and flow of knowledge, may not be a unique phenomenon to our known historical epoch, but a recurring theme in humanity's deep past.
If this cyclical view holds true, then our current civilization is not the first, nor necessarily the most advanced in every sense of the word. It would mean that humanity has risen before, developed its own unique form of culture and knowledge, and then, for reasons perhaps tied to geological cataclysm or environmental shifts, faded from memory. The remnants we find today, these enigmatic structures and unsettling anomalies, would then be the scattered echoes of a previous great age, a testament to a story far longer and more complex than we currently allow ourselves to tell. This cyclical understanding forces a reevaluation of our own place in time. Are we truly at the pinnacle of human development, or simply one iteration in a grander cosmic dance of creation and destruction? It implies that the lessons of sustainability, the understanding of planetary rhythms, and the wisdom of living in harmony with Earth may have been learned and then forgotten countless times before. The act of acknowledging such a past offers a powerful perspective on our present challenges, urging us to consider the long-term consequences of our actions and the potential fragility of even the most established civilizations. Such a radical reframing of history naturally meets with resistance from established academic paradigms. The scientific method thrives on observable, repeatable evidence, and the interpretation of anomalies can be a thorny path. Mainstream archaeology and geology have constructed a detailed narrative of human development based on decades of painstaking research. To suggest that significant chapters of that narrative might be missing or fundamentally misunderstood is to invite intense scrutiny and often outright dismissal. Yet, true scientific inquiry demands an openness to data that challenges preconceptions, an embrace of mystery, and a willingness to revise even our most cherished models in the face of compelling evidence. The very definition of evidence must expand when considering the profound erosive power of a global cataclysm or the vast silence of geological time. We cannot expect perfectly preserved cities or clearly decipherable texts from an era billions of years removed from our own, or even tens of thousands. Instead, we must learn to read the subtle language of the earth itself, the scars of ancient impacts, the patterns in stone that defy simple explanation, the enduring resonance of collective memory in myth. Fostering open scientific inquiry means allowing for respectful debate and investigation into ideas that, while currently outside the mainstream, are supported by a growing body of indirect yet potent indicators. It means dedicating resources to exploring submerged landscapes, to re-examining ancient sites with new technologies, and to reconsidering the narratives of indigenous peoples not as mere folklore, but as potential carriers of deep time memory. The goal is not to prove a predetermined conclusion, but to follow the evidence wherever it leads, even if it disrupts comfortable certainties.
Ultimately, the enduring mystery of pre-Ice Age civilizations holds a profound capacity to reshape our human self-perception and destiny. If we are not the first, that our understanding of intelligence, consciousness, and the very purpose of human existence is expanded. It implies a deeper legacy, a longer heritage, connecting us not just to a few thousand years of recorded history, but to vast, forgotten epics. Our sense of isolation might diminish, replaced by the profound realization that the human story is an enduring one, capable of surviving unimaginable change. This reevaluation of our past could inspire a different vision for our future. If civilizations have risen and fallen before, then our survival becomes not a guaranteed trajectory, but a delicate balance. It underscores the preciousness of our planet's habitability and the urgency of our responsibility to it. It teaches us humility, reminding us that even the most advanced societies are subject to the forces of time and nature. The possibility of a deep, unwritten chapter in human history beckons us to look deeper, not just into the soil beneath our feet, but into the depths of our collective memory and the vast expanse of time itself.
It is a call to question, to explore, and to embrace the notion that our true origins may be far more ancient, far more resilient, and far more awe-inspiring than we have ever dared to imagine. Whether the final answer reveals grand civilizations or only the persistent struggle of early human groups, the journey of inquiry itself will have redefined our understanding of who we are, where we come from, and what our destiny might truly be in the grand narrative of this living planet.